the slide in inflation-adjusted incomes. Don't they belie that?
Yeah, there are certainly some issues that are holding back an even bigger housing recovery. But I think when it comes to lending and tighter lending guidelines, I'd rather see us err on the side of too tight lending guidelines than the loose lending guidelines that got us into the housing crisis in the first place.
You were saying earlier you don't want to see this recovery too fast of a pace. Now, part of the demand that we're seeing for homes is coming from institutional investors who are using them for rental purposes, for that business. Yale Economist Robert Shiller says that he's seeing homes right now, people are considering them as speculative assets. He's concerned about that. Does that worry you?
Yeah, I think there's some red flags there with the institutional interest in single-family homes now. And we're seeing a pretty big increase. We looked at the numbers in the first quarter of institutions that bought at least 10 properties over the past 12 months, which we would consider institutional investors. And there was a 34% increase in that activity in the first quarter of 2013 compared to a year ago. And in some markets, places like Atlanta, we see an over 200% increase. Many of the markets in Florida, we're seeing over 100% increase. And so there's a red flag there that these institutional investors are not necessarily taking into account all the factors that an individual investor would when they're considering buying a property, and they're just looking at the numbers on a piece of paper and not necessarily looking at the property and the characteristics of the property in the neighborhood. And so there's some speculation going on there, I think, that could be a problem given that these institutional investors are not always looking carefully at those factors.